Hi everyone, welcome to the Chief Challenge, the Bath Vanity, all the vanity. We've got 10 minutes to create this vanity, and let's see if we can do it in the 10-minute challenge time. So the first thing I'm going to do is let's talk about a little bit of the process. I want to set my cabinet defaults up. Notice that we have some beefy hardware on there. I want to make sure I've got that set up. After my cabinet defaults are established, I'm going to go through and place all those cabinets and set the face item configuration. Move on, look at the countertop, integrate those sinks, place the fixtures. If we still have time and haven't met the 10-minute limit, we'll look at placing the accessories and changing any of the materials. So with that, let's go ahead and switch over. Let me get the program ready to go. Notice in the lower right-hand corner of my screen is the timer. Make sure you keep an eye on me. And let's go ahead and start it and see if we can get it done in 10 minutes. So the first thing is, with a new plan, let's begin with our cabinet tool, place our first cabinet, and inside of this cabinet, let's set the height at 34 inches, the depth at 21 inches, and the countertop at 6 inches. Then once we have that configured, let's go ahead and take our 3D view. I'm going to hold my Alt key down so we're in vector mode. We provided a user catalog. I'm going to open up that Chief Challenge catalog, and I'm going to go in and find our hardware, make sure my scoping mode is in object mode, and let's swap the hardware. And then let's make the adjustment, since that's a larger hardware, to change that door down maybe 6 3/8. That looks pretty good. Set that as our cabinet default. Now I'm ready to configure this cabinet for the 3-drawer bank. Let's go ahead and open it up. And the first thing I'm going to do is click on the door, switch that over to a drawer. We'll split it horizontally. Let's slide over to the left side of that cabinet and let's switch it to a custom face, and we want to change that face item to an inset. And then on the last portion is the width of that cabinet, and it looks like that should be 15 inches. Let's slide our view around. Let's grab our cabinet cross door, set our scoping to component mode, and now in our floor plan view, let's grab our cabinet tool, place a couple more cabinets. This is our sink base at 33 inches. Let's open it up and click on the face item we don't want. Remove that. One more cabinet off to the side over here, and this one for our towels, 21 inches. Let's go in, click on that face item, and that should be an opening, and let's just go ahead and adjust it so we have a little more room for the double drawer. Click on the shelves manual. We want one shelf in there, and let's browse out to the library, find that vanity catalog, and let's come over here, grab that X storage. And of course that will need to be resized. So let's go ahead from previous 0, and we'll set that at 15 3/4 at a full width. And then the final step will be to split that drawer in half. In our 3D view, I'll just use the material eyedropper, make sure I'm in plan mode, and apply that to all the cabinets. Then let's grab the 2 cabinets on either side. Let's use the copy and reflect about, pull those over to the other side, and if we did a good job, we should have the end panel. Now, for the integrated sinks, let's do that from an elevation view. In our elevation camera, let's zoom in here just a little bit. I'm going to use the CAD box tool, and I'm just going to come in here and draw a CAD box. Let's shape it. I'm going to use the break tool and create a shaping in here. That looks good to me. Let's convert that to a 3D solid. Prompt us to turn the layer on, and then we want this 26 by 16, and now we should have the first sink ready to go. Before we make a copy of that, let's make sure that we center that on the cabinet. Copy, and then let's reflect that around. And in our camera view, there are the 2 sinks. To integrate those into the countertop, I actually have to convert and do it from a custom countertop. So to convert that, I'm going to grab all 5 cabinets, generate a custom countertop. You see it's selected. I'm going to use the subtract operation, and we're going to subtract it, remove the original geometry. Exact same operation, subtract it and remove it. And then you can't tell, but I now have two countertops because that converted it into a 3D solid. So let's just open up those cabinets and remove the countertop, and then we'll change the height of the cabinets to adjust for that at 28 inches. And now you should be able to see it. Let's go into our manufacturer catalog and let's find a material from somebody like Decton, and then we'll just apply it. So let me pause the timer here with just over 5 minutes to go. Let's talk about what we just did here. When I drew those CAD objects and converted them into a 3D solid, it required a custom countertop to subtract those. And once I did that subtraction, it actually changed the property from that countertop to a 3D solid. And the cabinet said that they had an automatic countertop, and it came back and it was competing with that 3D solid. So I had to go back in and remove those. Now my other option would have been to place those cabinets no countertop initially, and then draw a floating or a custom countertop and then do the subtraction. Now the downside of that is the automatic countertop had the overhang at 1 inch all the way around, and I just found it easier and quicker to do it, but it did require a few steps. So either way would work. I just thought I'd show you the why behind what I did. So let's go back in. I've got a little bit over 5 minutes. We'll see if we can finish it up. So let's turn the clock back on. And now to place those fixtures, I'm going to go into a plan view, and probably the first thing that I need to do in going back in there is let's actually, that 3D solid for the countertop, I like to make sure that I convert that back onto the layer for countertops. Otherwise I'm going to not see it. I'm going to need to turn it on. So I'm just going to put that on the countertop layer for that 3D solid for the integrated. And then as we come in here for the drain and the faucet, let's come back down into the Vanity dialog or catalog, and let's grab our drain and let's grab our faucet. Place those two items, make sure that they're kind of positioned approximately where we want. Let's go ahead and center that on that cabinet. So we'll use the center tool, pick the center up, and it's centered. And before I make a copy paste, let's make sure the elevation view is correct. So let's grab this drain and let's just slide him down, pull him in about where we want. Same for the faucet. Let's slide that up to about where we need him. And then let's grab both. We'll use the copy and reflect about. Push that in, and then back in the floor plan view, let's grab our towels, and I'm going to hold my control key down to override bumping and pushing. And now let's go ahead and take our 3D overview and see what we got. So in a little under 7 minutes we were able to complete that. Pretty amazing, right? Using the tools in Chief. And then one of the things that I like to do is maybe change the rendering style. Let's use some line drawing on top, and then that should kind of wrap it up. So there's all the Vanity Chief Challenge in 10 minutes. So hope you enjoyed it, hope you had some fun, and if you had made a submission, we appreciate it, and thanks. Have a great day.
So hopefully you had some fun with this challenge. We're trying to present a couple of projects that will challenge your skills to get them done in a short amount of time. I'm going to take some live Q&A, and then at the end of the live Q&A, we'll go ahead and announce the winner. So with that said, if you have any questions, you'll find the raise hand in the control panel. Go ahead and raise your hand when we call on you. Be sure to unmute your microphone, and with that, I'm going to pass it over to Carrie to help with our Q&A.
Thanks, Scott. We had somebody write in and ask, I struggle placing the cross shelf. Could you review that one more time?
Okay, sure. So let's actually take a look at that. And let me grab our plan here. And if we take a peek at the vanity that we already have here, so I've got a cross shelf in here, and you see that what we've done is it's embedded in there. And what I've done with this particular cabinet is on that face item, I made sure that the face item in this case is an opening. And with that opening, you can come down and specify your shelving in here. So when you click specify on the shelving, you can see that I manually adjusted the shelves from automatic. So it's a manual operation. Number of shelves is 1. And then you can browse out to the library and you can find the different shelving. You can create your own custom shelves as well. And then once you choose that, you can set any of the parameters for the spacing and the thickness, if it needs to be a rollout shelf, and those kinds of things right in that area. So hopefully that helps with that.
Thanks, Scott. Can you explain why you converted the counter versus creating a custom countertop one more time?
Sure. Let me grab a plan and let's take a look at the process here. I'm just going to open up a variation of this plan without any countertop. And if we were to look at this in a 3D view, you don't see the countertop at all. So in this case, the cabinets are absent of the countertop. The reason in my challenge that I just did the conversion of the countertop was it already had the overhang information. And then when I converted it over, I didn't have to worry about it. But I mentioned earlier, you can do it either way, and it's actually pretty quick. I think we saw a question come in that said, well, how do you actually create that floating countertop? And so if I were to do that floating countertop underneath the cabinet tools, I would come in here and specifically use the countertop tool. And with the snaps on, you pick up the snap. You might see that in the upper left-hand corner. And then you can click and drag and pull that countertop right in. And so now it's exactly over the top of those cabinets. And if you want an overhang, it can be a pretty simple process to create a symmetrical overhang. Once I have the cabinet countertop selected, I'll move my mouse over this diamond in the right-hand corner of the vanity. And as I click and drag, I'm going to press the letter C down. That stands for concentric. So as I'm pulling this out concentrically, it's going to move it in a symmetrical distance all the way around. And before I release my left mouse button, I'm just going to press the tab key. And at this point, I can actually come in here and put a distance. So in this case, if I put in, let's say 1 inch, then I'm going to get a 1 inch overhang all the way around the cabinet. And along the back here, if I don't want that overhang along the back, it's quick to pull it in. And then the last thing you just need to do is change the countertop, set the thickness, in this case, maybe to, I think we said 6 inches. And then the floor to bottom, which would be 34 inches. And then we should have exactly what we need. And looks like I need to set that floor to bottom at floor to top at 34 inches. And that should do it for us. So that's a quick way to use the floating countertop. As I mentioned, when you do your subtraction of the 3D solid, you need a custom countertop. And in my challenge, since my cabinets already had the automatic countertop, and when I did that subtraction, it converted the countertop to a solid, and then the automatic countertop returned because the cabinet saw it didn't have a countertop. So a couple ways you can do that with the countertop.
Thank you, Scott. Brandon wrote in his question, which is, would you put a fillet on the countertop, on a custom countertop?
Okay, sure. So what you can do with countertops, since you probably don't want somebody to poke their eye out at 34 inches if you have a young child around, you can use the fillet tool And as I kind of zoom into the corner of this cabinet in here, and I select the edge, you can see the selected edge I have on with the red square. There's a fillet tool and a chamfer tool. So down in the fillet tool, if you click the fillet tool, and then in the lower corner here, you can set the fillet amount. Let me just make this pretty large so we can actually maybe see this at 3 inches. So once I set the fillet, you see the preview before I click the other edge, and now you can fillet it. And if we, let me undo that, and if we set the fillet radius to something a little more even, let's go ahead and grab that fillet, and let's set it to maybe something like 1 inch or a ½ inch. Well, let's set it to 1 inch so we can actually see it. There's a tool called Fillet All, and that's going to fillet all corners. So once you do the fillet all, then you can actually fillet all the way around anywhere there's a corner, and it will wrap its way around the countertop. There's also a tool that is similar to fillet. I mean, you could change the fillet amount, a couple ways to do this. So you could change the fillet amount to 0, and that would remove the fillet because it would set it to 0. There's also a tool that is next to the fillet called intersect or join intersecting lines. And that way you could come in here, if I do the back, and the program is going to say, would you like to get rid of the curve segments, and go ahead and say, okay. That way it will then remove that fillet. So if you had many corners in there, you want to fillet all of the corners and then come back and square up the back, that would be an option. And then the final tool, similar to that, is the chamfer tool, which would allow you to define and set a chamfer on there.
Thank you.
Does that work?
I think that works.
Okay.
Scott Tova wrote in, and she's wondering if you could demonstrate how the inset side panel was created.
Sure. Let's take a look and place a cabinet off to the side over here, and let's just do this kind of from scratch. Let me just grab a cabinet off to the side. And when you're looking at this cabinet, you see that the current face item is defaulted to just a either finished or unfinished edge, depending on if it's exposed. When you go into the cabinet dialog, on the front, sides, and back panel is where you can control the face items. And currently, when you open this up, you see that the side selected is the front, and currently the face items, there's a couple of face items on here. So if I wanted to make any changes to this, I could switch it over to the right side, okay? And in the dialog, kind of a nice handy feature, you can also use this rotate option so you can see what these face items are. And when I switch that over to the right side, the side type is using default. So the program is using the default settings for your initial cabinets. And if I wanted to override that, you can come in here and choose one of these other selected options. One of them would be a custom face, which allows you to kind of modify this any way you want. And what I actually did as part of the challenge was I used the custom face. You see the blank item. You also see the highlight over off to the right-hand side. And then you can change your face items per item. And so what I did is I chose the inset. When you choose the inset option, again, it's going to use your default cabinet door and drawer style. And right now mine's defaulted as a slab. You see the word default right in here. So it doesn't really look like I've changed anything. You can go in and browse out to the library and change it. So you could browse out to the library and find your catalog item and change it. A lot of times I find that easy to do just in a 3D view. So you see the inset in here, but it's using a slab. And then if you go out to your library's browser, and I'll just grab the one we used from the challenge, and we grab that door, then what I can do, make sure I'm in component mode, so we'll just swap it out. Then you can just swap it out that way. So it's a quick way to change that out. It's set up to be inset, and a pretty quick way to do it.
Thank you, Scott. We have a couple people writing in asking if you can demonstrate a countertop edge profile.
Sure. let's take this particular plan here, and let's just maybe disconnect that countertop so we have a larger one. And let's take a look at this edge here. So for this edge profile, in the program we call this molding. So if we open this up and we go to the moldings panel, currently there is no molding on this. It's just a straight 90-degree corner. So the easiest way to add that edge profile, go into the moldings panel, click Add New, and you can browse out to the library. Now there's a couple different places you can find your edge profiles. One is in the core catalogs. Inside of the core catalogs is a folder specifically for counter moldings. So as we kind of scroll down here and we look for the edge moldings, you see the basic ones. And then if you go out to our 3D library, we'll come down to the bonus catalogs. We also have countertop edge profiles, and this will add additional profiles into your library, and you can see that we have several in here. So if we choose to maybe do one of these profiles in here, then you see the profile. You can adjust the width and the depth of this. So if you've got a 6-inch countertop and you wanted the profile to go all the way and span that amount, you'd change the height and then the width of that profile, you would adjust it. Typically might be good practice to leave it at the same thickness as your countertop, and then that's the way you put your edge profile. It's going to come in whatever your default material is, and then you can use your material eyedropper and change that from that default material. So now you have that edge profile.
John is asking, is there a way to softly curve the original custom countertop rather than adding a profile?
Softly curve it.
Just the corner, at the top corner.
Let me hit undo. So we want to softly curve this.
Similarly to how you're adding a fillet, but along the edge, the top edge.
So it comes and curves slightly, like this?
Yep.
Okay. So that, I think, would be considered also an edge profile, and I'd probably just use a bull nose profile. So if we went back in here and we went into our moldings and we add new, let's go back in and choose underneath our bonus catalog. Let's see if there's a profile for a soft bull nose. So here's maybe a half bull nose, right? And by the way, these molding profiles, if we don't have the one from your fabricator, you can easily draw these. Some of the fabricators have them available, and then you can add them in the program and they'll extrude it in 3D for you. So here's this bull nose, half bull nose, and then there's a slight rounding of it. Change the material there. So there's a slight rounding of it, right?
Right. He's specifically asking if you can do that same effect without adding an edge profile.
Not so much that I'm aware of, because the custom countertop, I mean, if you're using the countertop tool, it's designed to either have an edge molding or not. Now, you could use another tool. You could use a polyline or a 3D solid and then take an elevation view and then curve it yourself. So that would be an option.
Okay, sounds good.
Want to use the countertop. Okay.
And our final question is from Warren, who asks if you could just demonstrate the sink inserts one more time.
The sink inserts?
Yes.
Was that from Warren, did you say?
Yes.
And so the integrated sink process?
Correct.
Okay. Well, I like to do those in the elevation view. And when I actually did that, when you shoot your elevation, I used just a CAD box. So using the CAD box tool, come in here and you click and drag the box, and then I just shaped it. So using the break tool, which is either in the lower edit menu or number 3 on your keyboard. I put a break in here, and then I just pulled that up and snapped that into place. So once you have the shape, I converted that into a 3D solid. So that process, we come down and we convert that into a 3D solid. And when you convert it into a solid, the program's going to kind of prompt you on what the final dimensions are. And for this particular sink, I think we said it should be 26 by 16 or somewhere. I don't have my drawing handy. So once I've got that set up, there's the shape of it. And then if you go back into this view in here, I just simply took that shape and used the center tool. If we grab the center tool and then we come back and we center that in here, and then you can do a copy and reflect about, pick up the center. So now we have 2, right? And the operation is called a Boolean operation, which is just going to allow you to select the main countertop. You do the selection of subtraction. Now notice that there are a couple other selections next to that. There's one called intersection and one called union. So depending on what you're doing with your custom countertops, it's pretty handy. So once you select the subtraction, this question here is saying, would you like to retain not only the subtraction, but also the geometry of the original objects? So I typically would say no there. And so that just does that subtraction. So select the main countertop, do the subtraction, pull it out, and remove it. And that's how the process that I use to create those integrated sinks. Now, hopefully that takes care of that question. One of the things that I'd noticed in some of the submissions, I come in here and I grab, let's grab another plan here. I noticed a few people here had a few issues, and this was a fairly common one. So you take a look here at this scenario here, and the shelf is sticking out, right? So if you know the solution, this is not a free floating shelf, it's actually part of it. If anybody out there knows the solution on how to correct this, maybe go ahead and raise your hand, and we can troubleshoot and figure out what we can do for this particular person that submitted with the cross shelf sticking out. So anybody out there know the answer to this?
We have somebody, we have Robert. Go ahead and unmute yourself and tell us your tricks.
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Hey, Robert.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Good.
So a good way to go about it, I click on the actual cabinet and then select the blank area, depending on the set height and width of it.
Right.
And then once that's taken care of, you can then select the item. Once it's grouped as a whole, click the centering tool and just center it on in and group it.
Yeah. So as we open up this cabinet, I think you said make sure that it was an opening, and you notice that it currently says that it's an appliance.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what's happening here is there's an offset defined for these storage shelves, and the appliance doesn't have the same offset. So if we were to simply just change that from an appliance to an opening, then there's no shelf associated with it. Then you just go back into the shelves. I think we did this earlier. There's one shelf, and then we browse out into the library. Let's go ahead and set the dimension to 0 so that we snug that up, and maybe make that 15 inches or so. And then we can browse out to the library at that point and grab that shelf, and then it should insert into there once we set the height of it. Okay, set it to be full. And that should solve that problem and stick it back in there. So the issue there, and I saw a few of this in the submissions, where the face item, instead of it being an opening, was actually specified as something else, and so the offset of that symbol didn't quite work. But thanks for shouting out to us, Robert. Appreciate it.
For sure. Thank you as well. Well, I have you on the line. A quick question for you. I notice oftentimes when we're dealing with these modern and contemporary vanities, we want to use LED light. Though the LED rope tool works really well, is there any way to control the gradient via a slider rather than inputting the number in?
So for the actual light in your rendering style?
Mm-hmm.
Well, one thing you could do if we slide over here, let me close this plan here. One of the things that you can do is you can use that LED lighting tool, and let's use that rope light, and we'll just draw it out here so we can easily see it. So one of the things that I'll do, you set the height of it to be 4 inches if it's going to be in the toe kick or something like that. One of the things you can do on that lighting information is there is a light data tab. And so you can kind of come in here and adjust the lumens, right? The intensity of that light. Have you changed that when you're doing your lighting?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So sometimes I might set that down to a lower number, and then you can also change the coloring of it. So depending on what you're after there, you can put a slight coloring on it. And I'll also probably reduce the number of lights that are associated with this thing so that there's not a ton of lights in here. So the distance between lights, sometimes I'll set that for bigger plans to maybe be spaced out at 12 inches, and then from finished floor, we'll just go ahead and set that at 4 inches. So that's typically what I might do. And then as we slide that kind of back into the cabinet area, of course, I don't have a room or anything. If we go back in and take a 3D overview of it. So then you can control that once you have your room set up. The amount of light coming from those lumens, you can adjust it, and depending on the type of rendering you're doing, if you're doing the GPU ray tracing using the physically based rendering technique, adjust it, or if you're using the CPU ray trace rendering technique, you might have to tweak it slightly differently. Does that help?
Yeah, it does. Just I was wondering to see if there was something, kind of how we have all of these tools, something if it would be easier to kind of have it like on a dimmer, similar to how we have like our scroll wheel on a mouse per se, where you scroll it out.
Yeah, sure. That's kind of fun. You could do it live in the 3D view, and like the old school rheostat dimmer. Yeah. Yeah, good suggestion. Yeah. Okay, so one final thing before we announce the winner. I saw some of the folks had asked about custom shelves. You can, if you don't find the shelf in the program, you can insert really any custom shelf. If we take this cabinet here and we go back into that opening and we hit specify for shelves, the program ships with a library of shelves. But if you want to find something or create something that's custom, just ahead of the seminar here, I created a wine rack that would hang the wine bottles upside down. So if you go browse out to the library and you come down into this wine hanger rack that I've created, all this is you kind of see the shape of it. Just has a shelf with holes in it. And then we go ahead and put in equal spacing, and let's also make it full. So now I've created this shelf in there. It's a custom shelf that I just drew. And then you can, I also created one for towel stuffing that had squares in it. But you can create any of those shelves. You can then just grab that and convert it to a symbol and use it for your own shelves. I've done that for closet racks as well. So it allows you to do really anything custom that you want to, and then you can export that out as a symbol, make sure you save it as millwork, and you can create your own custom shelves. So with that, Carrie, any other questions before we announce our winners here?
No, I think you got to everything.
Yeah. So thanks, everybody. And the first thing I wanted to do was an honorable mention for one of the participants. If I just kind of grab the drawing here, and let me slide this over. So I wanted to do an honorable mention here, Haley Cofield, and she's with Splide, I think it is, construction out of Minnesota. Great job here. Pretty much nailed most everything in the design work. So congratulations, Haley. You got our honorable mention in the Chief Challenge. And then our winner today was, let's pull this one over. So here's our winner, Coy Stables from Caliber Homes out of Melbourne, Florida. Certainly had their hands full in the last day with hurricanes down there. Did it in 10 minutes, and I don't know if Coy, if you're on the seminar today, if so, maybe get a chance, unmute your microphone and give us any of your tips and your strategy that you used here.
Hey, yeah, this is Coy.
Hey, congratulations.
Hey, thank you so much. I saw this and I was like, wow, this is really neat. I've never messed with like the integrated sinks before. And so I just started searching around, and I found an old video on how to create the custom sinks and stuff like that. But I thought this was really neat to be able to create that polyline solid and then go in and do the subtractions tool. So, I mean, you could really integrate the sink and make any kind of sink out of that countertop.
Yeah.
So yeah, I went about it a little different than you. I set all my base cabinets at 28-inch, and then I took the countertop off, and then went in and drew the custom countertop.
Yeah.
The one thing that you pointed out, which was nice, was, you know, using that shelf for the blank area. I ended up selecting the X storage and then kind of turning off my bumping and being able to insert it in there.
Sure.
But it doesn't come out as clean as, you know, actually being able to select it as the shelf.
It looks really good. So it clearly covered the project. And sometimes that's what you got to do if you're in a hurry and you got a client there as well.
Yes. So I really appreciate these 10 minutes challenges. I think they're a good way to get to learn the program more.
Yeah, well, thanks a lot. Congratulations. We're going to send you out. Let me just pull that up, slide that over. So this is what we're going to send you, Coy. Nice Yeti mug with the 30-year anniversary. You can wear the chief hat, and got some playing cards for you. And then a chief builder pencil, so you look official when you go out on the job site.
Wow, thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks a lot. So next week, as I open up my web browser, if you look at our schedule coming up, we've got a number of challenges. We have a total of 5 challenges, so 4 more left. Next week, we're going to do the mailbox. That sounds like it's maybe a little bit interesting, but the mailbox, hopefully these challenges are kind of about the process and learning some of the skills. Even though you may not be creating a mailbox, you'll learn maybe a few of what the tools can do. This week maybe was an integrated sink, and you can kind of learn that lots of things can be created, whether it's a custom tub platform or in this case, integrated sink. But these challenges are kind of meant to be fun, have a little bit of fun, and learn a few tips. We'll be talking about some of the tips you can use that would apply to creating custom objects. So this will be next week. And then the following week, they kind of get increasingly more difficult. We'll be looking at the round the island process, so another opportunity here for custom countertop. And then we'll move on. This will be the she shed. So feel free to copy this design. Good looking shed here, but it will be a challenge to get that done in 10 minutes. And then if I have it somewhere, the doghouse. The doghouse will be the last one here. And again, some fun aspects of this that you can apply to your design work. So you can sign up for these. If we go back into our events page, just go to the Chief Challenge and you can come in here and sign up for these. And if you go over to the Chief Challenge, it kind of talks about what you want. Make sure you download the library that's available for the challenge to try to make it a little bit easier as you stress out in the 10 minutes. And then each one of these challenges you can look at for the requirements. Again, next week will be the mailbox, same place, same time. And as far as our events, other events going on, just to let you know, we're going to be going back to Las Vegas for the Builder Show and Kitchen and Bath Show. That show is at the end of January. We're going to be doing a training in Las Vegas. So we're going to be doing introductory, intermediate, both residential and kitchen and bath. We have a virtual training coming up here mid-October. And then, of course, you can do our on-demand training at any time. And we also have, if you're newer to the program and want to do our boot camps, we have both a kitchen and a residential boot camp. Tomorrow is the kitchen boot camp, so if you want to take advantage of that, that's at 10 o'clock, and that's kind of a great way to learn the basics of the program. And then I already mentioned that we're going to the Builder and Kitchen and Bath Show. Hope you have a great day, and we'll see you back here for the Chief Challenge next week, same place, same time. Thanks a lot for attending, and those of you that submitted your designs.